Kevin Martinez stood in the servants' corridor of the royal palace, holding a stack of clean linens that smelled like sulfur and smoke. Everything in the Draken Empire smelled like that. 50 years had passed since the dragons conquered Earth, and humans still had not gotten used to the constant burning scent that filled every dragon building. "You are the new one?" a voice asked behind him. Kevin turned to see an older human woman with gray hair tied back in a tight bun. Her uniform was the same dark blue as his, marking them both as palace servants. She looked tired, the kind of tired that came from years of work with no hope of change. "Yes, ma'am. I arrived yesterday. They assigned me to Prince Valkor's quarters." The woman's expression changed, her eyes filled with something that looked like pity. "I see. No one told you, then." "Told me what?" She glanced down the corridor, making sure no dragons were nearby. "The prince is not like the others. The court calls him the Broken One. His fire is weak. He cannot fight like a proper dragon. Serving him means you will be mocked too. Other servants will avoid you." Kevin had heard rumors about the third prince during his training week. Prince Valkor was the shame of the royal family, they said. Born with a defect that made him useless in dragon society. Kevin had not cared much about palace gossip. He just wanted to survive his service, and maybe, one day, earn enough favor to help other humans. "I will manage," Kevin said. The woman shook her head. "You are young. You still have that earth stubbornness. It will get beaten out of you soon enough. Good luck, boy." She walked away, leaving Kevin alone with his linens and growing curiosity about this broken prince. Prince Valkor's quarters were in the east wing of the palace, far from the grand central halls where the king held court. Kevin knocked on the heavy door, and a quiet voice told him to enter. The room surprised him. Kevin had expected a warrior's chamber with weapons on the walls and trophies from hunts. Instead, he found shelves packed with books and data tablets. Star charts covered one wall. A large desk sat by the window, covered in papers and old texts. The prince himself sat at the desk, reading something on a glowing tablet. Prince Valkor looked up. He was smaller than other dragons Kevin had seen, though still twice the size of a human. His scales were deep blue with silver markings, and his eyes were golden. There was intelligence in those eyes, and something else. Sadness, maybe, or loneliness. "You are Kevin Martinez," the prince said. His voice was calm and surprisingly gentle. "They told me you were an engineer before the conquest." "Yes, Your Highness. I worked on water treatment systems in California." "California." The prince seemed to taste the word. "That is near the western coast of your continent, correct? The region with the fault lines and the ancient forests?" Kevin blinked in surprise. Most dragons knew nothing about Earth geography. They only cared that they had conquered it. "Yes, Your Highness." "You know about Earth?" "I read about it." Valkor gestured to his shelves. "I read about many things. It passes the time when one is not welcome in the training yards." There was no bitterness in his voice, just a statement of fact. Kevin found himself liking this strange prince already. The days passed into weeks. Kevin learned the prince's routines quickly. Valkor woke early and spent hours in the royal archives, reading about history, science, and alien cultures. He ate simple meals, not the great feasts other royals demanded. He asked Kevin questions about Earth and human ways, listening carefully to the answers. Kevin also learned why other servants avoided this assignment. Whenever Valkor appeared in public areas of the palace, other dragons stared at him with contempt. His brother, Prince Dravok, once deliberately knocked into him and laughed when Valkor said nothing. His sister, Princess Sereth, ignored him completely unless she wanted to make a cruel comment about his weakness. "Why do you not fight back?" Kevin asked one evening as he brought the prince his dinner. Valkor looked up from his reading. "What would be the point? I cannot breathe fire like they can. I cannot defeat them in combat. Any response I give will only prove their point, that I am inferior. But you are not inferior. You are just different." The prince made a sound that might have been a laugh. In dragon culture, different and inferior are the same thing. We value strength above all else. A dragon who cannot burn his enemies is no dragon at all. Kevin wanted to argue, but he knew it would be useless. The dragons had their ways, and humans had no power to change them. The turning point came during the Festival of Flames, a celebration of the Empire's founding. The entire court gathered in the Great Hall for a banquet. Servants lined the walls, ready to serve. Kevin stood behind Prince Valkor's seat at the royal table. King Thoraxis sat at the head of the table, massive and intimidating. His scales were black as night, and his eyes glowed red. He looked like something from ancient Earth myths about demons. Princess Sareth sat to his right, beautiful and cruel. Prince Dravok sat to his left, all muscles and arrogance. Valkor sat at the far end of the table, as far from his father as possible. Halfway through the feast, Princess Sareth stood up. She held a golden cup filled with fire wine, a drink that would burn a human's throat, but was nothing to a dragon. "Father, I wish to propose a toast," she said, her voice carrying across the hall. King Thoraxis nodded. "I toast to strength," Sareth continued, "to the power that built our empire, to the fire that burns in true dragon blood." She paused, letting her words sink in. Then she turned her golden eyes toward her brother. "I toast to those who deserve to carry the royal name, and I suggest that those who do not should be stripped of titles they bring shame to." The hall went silent. Every dragon knew she was talking about Valkor. Prince Valkor kept his eyes on his plate. His claws gripped the edge of the table, but he said nothing. King Thoraxis watched his son, waiting to see what Valkor would do. Kevin felt anger burn in his chest. He had seen this kind of bullying on Earth too. The strong picking on the weak just because they could. He had hated it then, and he hated it now. Without thinking, Kevin stepped forward from the servants' line. "The prince brings no shame," he said loudly. The hall went completely silent. Servants did not speak at royal banquets. Servants definitely did not contradict royalty. Princess Sareth turned to stare at him, her eyes wide with shock. Prince Dravok started laughing. King Thoraxis rose slowly from his seat, his full height making him look like a mountain of scales and teeth. "What did you say, human?" the king asked, his voice like grinding stone. Kevin's heart pounded, but he did not back down. "I said Prince Valkor brings no shame, Your Majesty. I have served him for 2 months. He is intelligent, honorable, and kind. Those are not weaknesses. On Earth, we measure worth by character, not just by strength. You dare speak of worth?" King Thoraxis took a step toward Kevin. Guards moved forward, ready to grab him. "You are a conquered servant. You have no right to speak at all. Then punish me." But I spoke the truth. Valkor finally looked up, his eyes meeting Kevin's. There was shock there, and something else. Gratitude. King Thoraxis stared at Kevin for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice cold and final. "Take this human to the dungeons. He will await my judgment for his insolence." Guards seized Kevin's arms, dragging him from the hall. As they pulled him away, Kevin saw Valkor half rise from his seat, looking like he wanted to protest. Their eyes met for one more second before Kevin was pulled through the doorway. In that second, something changed between them. Kevin had stood up for the prince when no one else would, and Valkor would not forget it. The dungeon beneath the palace was carved from solid rock. Kevin sat on a stone bench in a cell that smelled of damp and old fear. A small window near the ceiling let in weak light from the moons. He had been there for 6 hours, alone with his thoughts and growing regret. What had he been thinking? Speaking out like that could mean execution. Humans had been killed for less. But when he remembered Princess Sareth's cruel smile and Valkor's quiet pain, Kevin knew he would do it again. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Kevin expected guards, but Prince Valkor appeared outside his cell instead. The prince looked different in the dim light. More dangerous. More truly dragon-like. "You should not have done that," Valkor said quietly. "Probably not," Kevin agreed. "But someone needed to say it." "Why?" The prince's golden eyes searched Kevin's face. "Why would you risk everything for me?" I am nothing to you. Just another dragon master. Kevin stood up and walked to the bars. On Earth, I had a younger brother. He was small for his age, not good at sports. Other kids picked on him constantly. I got in trouble more than once defending him. Kevin smiled sadly at the memory. You remind me of him. Smart, kind, and surrounded by people who cannot see past their own narrow ideas of strength. Veilcore was quiet for a long moment. What happened to your brother? He died when the dragons bombed Los Angeles. He was 17. I am sorry. The prince's voice was sincere. I did not fight in that war. I was too young and too weak. But I am still sorry for what my people did to yours. It was the first time any dragon had ever apologized to Kevin. He did not know what to say. The king will decide your fate tomorrow, Veilcore continued. I tried to speak to him, but he would not listen. He is very angry that a human dared to contradict royalty in open court. I understand. Thank you for trying. Veilcore hesitated, then said, Whatever happens, I want you to know that what you did tonight meant something to me. No one has ever defended me before. Not even my own family. After the prince left, Kevin tried to sleep, but could not. He thought about Earth, about his brother, about all the ways this could end. None of them were good. Morning came too soon. Guards brought Kevin to the throne room. King Thoraxis sat on a massive throne carved from black stone. The entire court had gathered to watch. Kevin saw other human servants along the walls, their faces carefully blank. Veilcore stood to one side, his expression tight with worry. Kevin Martinez, the king said, his voice echoing through the chamber. You spoke out of turn at my table. You contradicted a royal princess. You, a human servant, dared to speak of worth and honor as if you had any understanding of such things. Kevin said nothing. There was nothing to say. For this crime, the traditional punishment is death, the king continued. Several courtiers nodded in approval. Princess Sereth smiled. However, King Thoraxis said, and the room went quiet. My son has pleaded for your life. He claims you spoke from loyalty, not disrespect. He says you have value. The king's red eyes fixed on Kevin. I do not believe him. I think you are an arrogant human who forgot his place. But I am willing to be proven wrong. The king stood up, his shadow falling over the entire room. In 3 months, the trial of succession will begin. All royal children of age must compete for the right to be named heir. Prince Veilcore has never participated before because he knows he would fail. But this year, he will compete, and you, Kevin Martinez, will prepare him. A murmur ran through the court. Prince Dravok laughed outright. Even Veilcore looked shocked. If Prince Veilcore succeeds in the trial, proves he has worth as you claim, then you will be freed and rewarded. If he fails, as I expect he will, then both of you will be exiled from the Empire. You will be sent to the border worlds, where life is short and brutal. The king sat back down. Do you accept these terms? Kevin looked at Veilcore. The prince's face was pale, his claws gripping his robes. He was terrified. But in his eyes, Kevin saw a spark of hope. I accept, Kevin said. Then you have 3 months. Do not waste them. The court was dismissed. As Kevin was led away, he heard Princess Sereth laugh. This will be entertaining, she told her brother Dravok. Watching them both fail, Kevin's cell became a workspace. The guards brought him data tablets and access to the palace archives. Veilcore visited every day, and they began to plan. The trial of succession has 5 challenges, Veilcore explained, pulling up old records on a tablet. They change each time, but they always test combat ability, strength, firepower, and leadership. I cannot win any of those challenges. Not if you try to compete like a typical dragon, Kevin agreed. He had been studying the archives too. But what if we change the rules? You cannot change the rules. The trial is ancient tradition. I do not mean change the actual rules. I mean change how you approach them. Kevin pulled up footage from the last trial. Look at this. Prince Xanthar won by being the strongest fighter. But look here, and here. There were moments where strategy would have worked better than strength. Moments where thinking ahead would have saved energy. Velcor leaned forward, his eyes focusing on the screen. You are right. He wasted effort on direct confrontation when a flanking move would have been faster. Exactly. You have read more books than any other dragon in this palace. You know history, tactics, science. We can use that. The other competitors will have full teams of dragon warriors to help them. I will only have you. Kevin grinned. Then, we will have to be smarter than all of them combined. They worked 18 hours a day. Kevin studied dragon combat techniques and the history of the trials. Velcor taught him about dragon physiology and the various alien species in the Empire. They watched recordings of past trials until they could predict every move. Kevin also made Velcor train physically. The prince would never be as strong as his siblings, but he could be faster and more efficient. They ran laps around the palace gardens at dawn. They practiced climbing and swimming. Kevin pushed him hard. But Velcor never complained. On Earth, we had a saying. Kevin told him one morning after a particularly brutal training session. It is not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog. Velcor collapsed on the grass, breathing hard. What does that mean? It means heart matters more than size. Determination can beat raw strength. I hope you are right. My sister has been watching us train. She asked me yesterday if I had accepted death yet. Your sister is worried. That is why she is trying to shake your confidence. You think she sees me as a threat? Velcor sounded almost hopeful. I think she is smart enough to realize that unconventional thinking is dangerous. We are not playing by the rules she expects. That makes us unpredictable. As the weeks passed, Kevin noticed changes in the prince. Velcor stood straighter. He spoke with more confidence. The other courtiers still mocked him, but now he ignored them instead of letting their words wound him. Kevin changed too. He had arrived at the palace thinking only of survival. Now, he had a purpose. He was helping someone who deserved help. It felt good. One night, 2 weeks before the trial, Velcor asked Kevin a question. If we somehow succeed, if we actually win this trial, what will you ask for as a reward? Kevin thought about it. Freedom would be nice. Money would help. But what he really wanted was bigger than that. I would ask the king to give humans a chance, Kevin said. Real jobs, not just servant work. Let us prove we have value beyond cleaning floors and serving meals. IBR. Velcor nodded slowly. If I become crown prince one day, I will make that happen. With or without my father's approval. Let us worry about surviving the next 2 weeks first. The night before they were scheduled to leave for the trial, Kevin could not sleep. He stood at the window of his small room, looking out at the city below. Dragons flew through the air on their way to late-night activities. Lights glowed in towers across the capital. A knock on his door surprised him. Velcor entered, looking nervous. I wanted to say something before tomorrow, the prince said. In case we do not get another chance. Load. Go ahead. You did not have to do any of this. You could have stayed quiet at the banquet. You could have let my father execute you, rather than accept his challenge. You could have given up during training, but you did not. Velcor's golden eyes met Kevin's. I spent my whole life believing I was worthless, because I could not fight like other dragons. You showed me I was wrong. Whatever happens tomorrow, thank you for that. Kevin felt his throat tighten with emotion. You were never worthless. You just needed someone to see you clearly. They left at dawn for the trial world. As their ship lifted into the sky, Kevin looked back at the palace one last time. In 3 months, they would either return as heroes or be exiled forever. He intended to make sure it was the first option. The ship descended through thick clouds toward Korth Prime. Kevin pressed his face against the window, watching the planet reveal itself. Red rock formations jutted up through purple vegetation. Rivers of lava carved bright orange paths through dark valleys. In the distance, massive volcanoes spewed ash into the sky. "This world will kill us," Kevin muttered. "That is the point," Veilcor said from beside him. "The trial must be dangerous. Only the strong survive. Only the strong deserve to rule. We are going to change that definition of strong." The landing zone was a flat area of black rock near the base of a mountain range. 4 other ships had already landed. Kevin watched as the royal competitors emerged with their teams. Princess Sereth had 6 dragon warriors, all veterans of border wars. Prince Dravok had 5, each one bigger and meaner looking than the last. Prince Xanthar brought 4 elite guards. Princess Myrith, the youngest competitor besides Veilcor, had 3 fire specialists. Then Veilcor stepped off his ship with only Kevin behind him. Prince Dravok burst out laughing. "Little brother brought his pet human." "This will be over quickly," Princess Sereth smiled. But her eyes were cold and calculating. She was not laughing. She was watching, evaluating, planning. A hologram appeared in the center of the landing zone. King Thoraxis's massive form materialized, addressing all 5 competitors. Across the Empire, billions would be watching this broadcast. "Welcome to the trial of succession," the king's voice boomed. "5 of my children stand before me. Only one will prove worthy to be named heir to the Draken throne. You will face 5 challenges over the next 10 days. Each challenge will test a different aspect of leadership and strength. There are no rules except this. You must complete each challenge to advance. Those who fail will be eliminated. Those who quit will be exiled. Those who die will be honored." The hologram shifted to show a map of the region. A red marker appeared on the far side of a vast lava field. "Your first challenge begins now. Reach the marker before sunset. The last one to arrive will be eliminated immediately. Begin." The hologram vanished. Immediately, all the competitors started moving. Prince Dravok and his team charged straight toward the lava fields, trusting in their strength and fire resistance. Princess Myrith took flight, trying to cover distance quickly from the air. Princess Sereth and Prince Xanthar moved more cautiously, their teams scouting ahead. "Everyone is going directly across," Kevin said, studying his datapad with the map. "What do you think?" Veilcor looked at the terrain, then at the sun position. "The direct route is 8 kilometers across active lava flows. The heat alone will exhaust even the strongest dragon. By the time they reach the marker, they will be drained for whatever comes next. But we cannot cross lava at all. You can handle some heat with your scales, but I will cook. Look here." Veilcor pointed to the map. "There is a canyon system that curves around the lava field. It is twice the distance, but the temperature will be survivable. We will take longer, but we will arrive with more energy. And if we are last, then we are eliminated, and this is over." Veilcor looked at Kevin. "Do you trust me?" "Always. Let us go." They headed for the canyons, while the other teams pushed into the lava fields. The canyon walls provided shade from the brutal sun. Kevin's human eyes, better at certain wavelengths than dragon vision, spotted handholds and paths that Veilcor might have missed. They moved quickly but carefully. Hours passed. The temperature rose even in the shade. Kevin drank water from his pack every few minutes, fighting dehydration. Veilcor's scales, designed to handle heat, helped him manage better. But even he was suffering. "Do you think the others are ahead of us?" Veilcor asked, as they climbed over a boulder field. "Definitely. But let us see what condition they are in when we arrive." They emerged from the canyons 2 hours before sunset and saw the marker ahead. But they also saw something else. 3 teams had already arrived, and they looked terrible. Prince Dravok had lost 1 warrior who collapsed from heat exhaustion. Princess Myreth's team was badly burned, her wings damaged from flying too close to lava vents. Prince Xanthar had arrived in decent shape, but his warriors were exhausted. Princess Sereth arrived 30 minutes later, her team in similar condition. She glared at Veilcor and Kevin as they walked up to the marker, both tired but still functional. "How?" she demanded. "You should have been eliminated." You are too weak to cross the lava fields. We did not cross them, Valcor said calmly. We went around. That is cheating. The rules said to reach the marker before sunset. We did. They did not specify the route. A hologram appeared, showing King Thoraxis. He looked at his children with those burning red eyes, lingering on Valcor longer than the others. All 5 competitors arrived before sunset. The challenge is complete. Rest tonight. Tomorrow, the second challenge begins at dawn. That night, the teams made camps near the marker. Kevin sat with Valcor away from the others, eating rations and planning for the next day. They are talking about us, Valcor said quietly, glancing at where Princess Sereth and Prince Dravok stood together, speaking in low voices and looking their direction. Let them talk. We beat their expectations today. That is what matters. The second challenge was announced at dawn. Each team had to track and capture a thornback beast, one of Korth Prime's most dangerous predators. The creatures were 3 meters tall, covered in poisonous spines, and extremely aggressive. Previous trials had seen warriors killed during this challenge. The hologram showed a tracking device. Each team has been given a scanner. Find a thornback, capture it alive, and bring it to the collection point. The team that takes longest will be eliminated. The other teams immediately spread out, scanning for heat signatures and tracks. Their plan was simple. Find a thornback, overpower it with numbers, and drag it back. Kevin and Valcor took a different approach. They found a spot near a water source and studied the thornback's behavior patterns from Valcor's archive knowledge. They are ambush predators, Valcor explained. They do not chase prey. They wait near water and strike when animals come to drink. So we let one come to us. Kevin looked around, evaluating the terrain. We need a trap. They spent 3 hours building a cage from materials in their supply drop. Kevin used his engineering knowledge to design a trigger mechanism. They baited it with meat from their rations and waited. Meanwhile, they heard roars and fighting in the distance as other teams engaged thornbacks directly. Prince Dravok's team brought one down but lost another warrior to poison spines. Princess Myrith's team caught one quickly, using fire to drive it into a net. Princess Sereth was still hunting, her team moving carefully. Then their trap triggered. A thornback had entered the cage for the meat, and the door slammed shut. The creature roared and threw itself against the bars. But the cage held. Kevin and Valcor approached carefully. Easy, Valcor said softly. We mean you no harm. We will release you soon. Oh, the thornback's red eyes fixed on them with pure hatred. But it stopped thrashing. They brought their captured beast to the collection point to find they were third to arrive. Princess Myrith was first, Prince Dravok second. Prince Xanthar arrived 20 minutes later, his team exhausted from a long chase. Princess Sereth arrived last, her warriors bloodied and angry. Princess Sereth is eliminated, the king's hologram announced. Kevin expected her to leave immediately. Instead, she walked over to where Valcor stood. Clever little brother, she said, her voice low and dangerous. Very clever. But cleverness will not save you in the challenges to come. Some things require real strength, not tricks. After she left on a transport ship, Kevin felt uneasy. She is planning something. She cannot interfere. She has been eliminated. Maybe. But she looked too calm for someone who just lost. The third challenge came 2 days later. Navigation through the Shadow Canyons. A maze of narrow passages where magnetic interference made all electronic devices useless. No scanners, no maps, no communication. Each team had to rely on instinct and skill to find the exit. This is a test of decision-making under pressure, Valcor said as they stood at the canyon entrance. And a test of whether teams trust their leaders or fall apart when scared. The canyons were dark, lit only by patches of bioluminescent moss. The walls closed in tight enough that even Kevin had to turn sideways in places. Strange sounds echoed from the depths, and the air was cold and damp. They had been walking for 2 hours when Kevin noticed something wrong. Scratch marks on the walls that were too fresh. Signs of recent passage. Someone else is in here with us. Kevin whispered. Another team? Or something worse? They rounded a corner and found themselves face to face with Prince Dravok and two of his remaining warriors. But these were not competitors passing by. They were waiting in ambush. "Hello, little brother," Dravok said, his teeth showing in a predator's smile. "I thought we might run into you down here." Veilcor stepped in front of Kevin. "What are you doing, Dravok?" Sereth made a good point before she left. "You are cheating your way through this trial, using tricks instead of strength. Father might be fooled, but I am not. I am going to remove you from the competition. That is against the rules. Competitors cannot attack each other. Can they not?" Dravok gestured to the dark canyons around them. "Who will know what happened down here? No cameras work. No one can see. You could have gotten lost, or fallen, or been attacked by some local predator. Tragic accidents happen." Kevin's heart pounded. This was not just an ambush. This was an assassination attempt. And no one would ever know the truth. Prince Dravok moved forward, his claws scraping against the stone floor, his two warriors spread out, blocking any escape route. In the narrow canyon, there was nowhere to run. "I will make this quick," Dravok said. "For you, Veilcor, I might even feel some regret. You are weak, but you are still my brother." But the human dies slowly for daring to think he could compete with dragons. Kevin's mind raced. They were outnumbered and outmatched. Veilcor could maybe fight one dragon warrior, but not three. Kevin had no weapons except a small knife on his belt, and whatever he could improvise. Then he looked up. The canyon walls were narrow, the ceiling was low, and there were cracks in the rock above them. "Veilcor," Kevin said quietly, "when I say run, go left as fast as you can. What are you planning?" "Something stupid. Be ready." Kevin grabbed a metal canister from his pack. It was a flare, meant for emergency signals. He pulled the activation tab and threw it at the canyon ceiling, right above Dravok's warriors. The flare exploded with a burst of brilliant white light. In the dark canyons, the effect was blinding. The dragons roared and covered their eyes, but Kevin had closed his own eyes the moment before the flare went off, and human eyes adjusted to light changes faster than dragon eyes. "Run!" he shouted. Kevin and Veilcor bolted left, deeper into the maze. Behind them, they heard Dravok bellowing orders to his warriors. "Split up," Kevin said. "I will draw them one direction. You go the other. Find the exit. I will not leave you. You have to. If we stay together, they will catch us both. Go." Veilcor hesitated for only a second, then ran right at a fork in the canyon. Kevin went left, making as much noise as possible. He heard the heavy footsteps of dragons following him. Good. He was faster than them in tight spaces, and his smaller size was an advantage here. Kevin ran through the darkness, his hands touching the walls to guide him. He could hear one of Dravok's warriors gaining on him, breathing hard, cursing. The warrior was big and strong, but these narrow passages slowed him down. Kevin found what he was looking for, a section where the walls were particularly close together. He stopped running and turned around, pulling out his knife. The warrior rounded the corner and found Kevin waiting. The dragon laughed. "You think that tiny blade will hurt me, human?" "No," Kevin said, "but this might." He jabbed the knife into a crack in the wall where he had noticed gas seeping out. The small spark from metal hitting rock was enough. The gas pocket ignited with a whoosh of flame. It was not enough to really hurt the dragon, but it surprised him. The warrior stumbled backward, and Kevin used that moment to squeeze through a gap in the rocks that was too small for the dragon to follow. He kept moving, trying to find his way back to Veilcor. The canyons twisted and turned. Twice he had to hide, as dragons passed nearby. Once he heard Dravok himself, shouting in frustration. After what felt like hours, Kevin saw light ahead. The exit. He stumbled out into bright sunlight, and found Veilcor waiting there. Along with Prince Xanthar and Princess Myrith, they had both finished the challenge. "Where is my brother?" Myrith asked, looking suspicious. "Still in the canyons, I think," Kevin said, trying to catch his breath. Veilcor pulled Kevin aside. "Are you hurt?" "No, Just tired. Where is Dravok? Lake. Where is Dravok? I do not know. I have been here for 10 minutes. 20 minutes later, Prince Dravok emerged from the canyons with his 2 warriors. He looked angry and frustrated. When he saw Kevin and Valcor, his eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. In front of the others, he could not reveal what he had tried to do. King Thoraxis's hologram appeared. Prince Xanthar finished first. Princess Myrith second. Prince Valcor third. Prince Dravok fourth. All competitors advanced to the next challenge. That night, as the teams made camp, Kevin told Valcor what he was thinking. We should report what Dravok did. Attempting to murder a competitor is against the rules. He should be disqualified. I know, Valcor said quietly, but I will not report it. Why not? He tried to kill us. Because if I report him, everyone will say I am weak, that I cannot handle conflict, that I ran crying to father the moment things got difficult. Valcor looked at the stars above them. If I win this trial, I want to win it fairly. I want to prove I deserve to be crown prince, not because my siblings were disqualified for breaking rules. Kevin wanted to argue, but he understood. Valcor needed to win on his own merit, not on technicalities. It was frustrating, but it was also honorable. Fine, Kevin said. But if he tries again, I will not hold back. Agreed. Far away on the palace world, King Thoraxis watched recordings of the trials in his private chambers. He had seen every challenge so far. He had watched Valcor use strategy over strength, intelligence over power. He had seen the human servant fight with creativity and courage. Most importantly, he had seen the footage from the Shadow Canyons. Hidden cameras, placed there by his security team, had recorded everything. He knew exactly what Dravok had done. He knew that Valcor had chosen not to report it. For the first time in years, the king felt something unexpected. Respect for his third son. The fourth challenge came 3 days later. It was a test of firepower. Each competitor had to melt through a wall of reinforced metal using only their dragon fire. The thickness of the metal and the time limit would push even the strongest dragons to their limits. I cannot do this, Valcor said, staring at his section of the metal wall. My fire is too weak. This is designed to eliminate me. Kevin examined the wall carefully. It was 3 meters thick, made of a heat-resistant alloy. Valcor's weak flames might take days to burn through it. They had 4 hours. We need to think, Kevin said. Fire is just one form of heat transfer. There are others. What do you mean? Your fire is weak. But it is still fire. What if we do not try to melt through the entire wall? What if we create stress points? Kevin explained his plan. Valcor would heat small, specific points on the wall, creating temperature differences. The metal would expand unevenly. Then they would hit those points with rocks, using the thermal stress to create cracks. It was not brute force, but it might work. They spent an hour carefully heating and striking. Heating and striking. Slowly, cracks formed. Princess Myrith finished first, her powerful flames cutting through the wall like it was butter. Prince Dravok finished second. Prince Xanthar finished third. Valcor and Kevin were running out of time. The cracks were spreading, but not fast enough. With 10 minutes left, Kevin grabbed the largest rock he could lift and slammed it into the weakest point with all his strength. The wall gave way. Not a clean cut like the others, but a jagged opening large enough to pass through. They stumbled through with 3 minutes to spare. All competitors advance, King Thoraxis announced, though he sounded surprised when he looked at Valcor's section of wall. Tomorrow, you face the final challenge. That night, the king's hologram appeared for a special announcement. This time, he addressed not just the competitors, but the entire empire watching the broadcast. The final challenge will test the quality that matters most in a ruler, the king said. Leadership under pressure. Each competitor will be given a defensive position. You will face simulated enemy forces trying to overrun your position. But you will also be responsible for protecting civilian refugees fleeing through your zone. You will be scored on 3 factors: casualties prevented, position held, and refugees saved. The competitor with the highest score will be named my heir. Kevin felt his stomach tighten. This was it. The final test. Everything they had worked for came down to one challenge. There is one more thing, the king continued. The simulation will not be gentle. It will feel real. People will seem to die. You will face impossible choices. How you respond to those choices will show me who deserves to rule. The hologram faded. This is what I was afraid of, Veilcor said. A test that requires me to choose between victory and protecting others. The smart choice for winning is to ignore the refugees and focus on holding the position. But you will not do that, Kevin said. It was not a question. No, I will not. Even if it costs us everything, Kevin smiled. Good. Because I would not want to win any other way either. We are going to protect those refugees, hold that position, and win this trial. All at the same time. How? By being smarter than everyone else. Like we have been from the start. Kevin pulled out his datapad and started making notes. We have 12 hours to prepare. Let us use them. As they planned through the night, neither of them noticed the figure watching from the shadows. Prince Dravok stood alone, looking at his younger brother with an expression that was not quite hatred anymore. It was something more complicated. Perhaps it was the beginning of respect, or perhaps it was fear that the broken prince might actually win. The final challenge arena was a mountain fortress, with narrow passes and defensive walls. Holographic projectors created realistic enemy forces and civilian refugees. The simulation would last 6 hours. Each competitor took position in their assigned sector of the fortress. Kevin stood beside Veilcor on the walls of their section, looking out at the valley below. Already, the simulation was starting. Holographic enemy soldiers advanced up the mountain. Behind them, a stream of refugees fled toward the fortress, civilians carrying children and belongings, desperate for safety. Remember the plan? Kevin said. We hold the main pass, but we set up a secondary defense point here. He pointed to a spot 50 meters back. When they push too hard on the first line, we fall back in order. That keeps us from being overrun. And the refugees? We send them through the side passage, not the main gate. It takes longer, but it keeps them away from the fighting. In the other sectors, the competition was already heating up. Princess Myrith took an aggressive approach, pushing out from her position to meet the enemy. Her fire rained down on the simulated soldiers, destroying them efficiently. But refugees trying to reach her sector had to cross the battlefield, and many did not make it. Prince Dravok held his position strongly, his warriors forming a solid defensive line. But when refugees reached his gate, he turned them away, sending them to other sectors. He was protecting his position, not the civilians. Prince Xanthar tried to balance both, but he spread his forces too thin. His position started to crack under pressure. Veilcor's approach was different. As the enemy advanced, he studied their patterns from the high wall. They are following predictable attack routes, he said. Kevin, if we collapse this section of the outer wall, it will force them into a bottleneck. That will also slow down the refugees, only for a few minutes. Then the passage will actually be safer because the enemies cannot flank. Kevin trusted his judgment. They triggered a controlled collapse, and the enemy forces bunched up exactly where Veilcor predicted. From the fortress walls, even Veilcor's weak fire could hit the concentrated targets. But then the simulation increased difficulty. More enemy forces appeared. Heavier weapons. The refugees streaming toward the fortress doubled in number. The system was testing their limits. We cannot hold the outer position much longer, Kevin said, watching the enemy advance. Fall back to the secondary line. They retreated in good order, making the enemy pay for every meter. The refugees kept flowing through the side passage. Kevin personally helped an older woman carrying a child, getting them to safety behind the walls. 3 hours into the challenge, Veilcor faced his first impossible choice. A large group of refugees was trapped in the valley, pinned down by enemy fire. The safe option was to leave them and focus on holding the fortress. The tactical option was to ignore them and preserve strength. "I am going out there," Veilcor said. "That is exactly what they want you to do. It is a trap. I know. But I cannot leave them to die." Veilcor launched himself from the wall, gliding down into the valley on his wings. Kevin provided covering fire with a projectile weapon, keeping the simulated enemies distracted. Veilcor reached the refugees and started directing them toward safety. Using his body as a shield, an enemy soldier's weapon scored a hit on Veilcor's wing. The hologram was realistic enough to cause pain feedback. The prince fell, crashing to the ground. For a moment, Kevin thought it was over, but Veilcor got up. Bleeding, limping, he kept moving the refugees. Kevin ran down from the fortress, abandoning the defensive position entirely to help. Together, they got the civilians to safety. When they returned to their position, they found the enemy had advanced during their absence. They had lost ground. Their score was dropping. "We are losing," Kevin said, checking the readout. "I know. But those people are safe. That matters more." 4 hours in, Princess Myrith was in the lead. She had destroyed the most enemies and held her position perfectly. But her refugee count was the lowest. Many had died trying to reach her sector across the open battlefield. Prince Dravok was in second place. His position was still strong, but he had turned away hundreds of refugees. Prince Xanthar's position had collapsed an hour ago. He was out of the competition. Veilcor was in fourth place. His position was weakened, his forces exhausted. But every refugee who reached his sector had been saved. The final 2 hours were brutal. The simulation threw everything at them. Wave after wave of enemies. More refugees fleeing in panic. Difficult choices at every turn. Kevin took a hit, saving a group of children. The pain feedback was intense, but he kept fighting. Veilcor's fire was almost gone. His energy depleted. They were running on determination alone. In a critical moment, Veilcor had to make the hardest choice of all. The enemy was about to overrun his position. He could retreat to the inner fortress, save himself and Kevin, and still possibly place high enough to advance. Or he could make a last stand to buy time for one final group of refugees struggling up the mountain path. "Veilcor, we have to fall back," Kevin shouted over the noise of battle. The prince looked at the refugees, then at Kevin, then at the advancing enemy. His golden eyes were calm. "No," he said simply. "We hold." They made their stand at the gates. Veilcor breathed his weak flames until there was nothing left. Kevin fired until his weapon ran dry, then fought with his hands. The enemy kept coming. The refugees kept running past them into safety. When the simulation finally ended, Veilcor and Kevin collapsed on the ground, exhausted. They had held their position until the last second. They had saved every refugee that reached their sector, but by the scoring system, they had lost. Princess Myrith had the highest combat score. Prince Dravok had the best defensive rating. The transport ships arrived to bring them back to the palace world. During the flight, Kevin expected Veilcor to be disappointed. Instead, the prince seemed at peace. "We did the right thing," Veilcor said. "Whatever happens now, I know we did the right thing." 3 days later, the entire court gathered in the throne room for the king's judgment. All 5 competitors stood before King Thraxus. The entire empire watched on broadcasts. "I have reviewed the results of all 5 challenges," the king said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "I have seen strength, strategy, firepower, and endurance. All necessary qualities in a ruler." He looked at each of his children in turn. Princess Myrith showed the greatest combat ability. Prince Dravok held the strongest defensive position. Prince Xanthar fought with intelligence and skill. Princess Sereth competed well before her elimination. Then his red eyes fixed on Veilcor. Prince Veilcor scored lowest in almost every category. His fire is weak, his strength is limited. By traditional measures, he is the least qualified of all my children. Kevin felt his heart sink. They had lost. However, the king continued, "I did not choose these challenges merely to test strength. I chose them to find who truly understands what it means to lead. And in that, only one competitor succeeded. The king stood up from his throne. Prince Valcor, step forward. Valcor walked to the base of the throne, his head high despite everything. In every challenge, you found a way to succeed not through power, but through wisdom. You protected those weaker than yourself. You chose honor over victory, mercy over vengeance. In the final challenge, you were given a choice between winning and doing what was right. You chose right. The king's voice softened slightly. I have been king for 300 years. I built this empire on strength and fire. I believed those were the only qualities that mattered. But watching you these past 10 days, I realized I was wrong. A king must know when to fight, but also when to protect. When to be strong, but also when to be wise. King Thoraxis placed a clawed hand on Valcor's shoulder. You showed me what true leadership looks like. Therefore, I name you Crown Prince of the Draken Empire. Heir to my throne. The court erupted. Some dragons cheered. Others looked shocked. Princess Sarath's face was pale with fury. Prince Dravok stared at his younger brother with an unreadable expression. Then the king turned to Kevin. Kevin Martinez, step forward. Kevin's legs felt weak as he walked to stand beside Valcor. You are human. By the laws of our empire, you are a conquered servant. Beneath notice. The king's red eyes bored into Kevin. But you did something I did not think possible. You changed my son. More than that, you changed my mind. The king addressed the entire court. I have seen this human display courage, intelligence, and loyalty beyond what I thought any human capable of. I watched him risk his life for my son repeatedly. I watched him teach Valcor lessons that I, in 300 years, failed to teach. King Thoraxis looked back at Kevin. I hereby grant you the rank of Royal Advisor, the first human to hold rank in this court. You will counsel the Crown Prince in all matters. More than this, I issue a decree that humans across the Empire will be given opportunities to prove their worth in positions beyond servitude. You have earned this for your people through your actions. Kevin could not speak. He had never expected this. Beside him, Valcor smiled. Thank you, Your Majesty. Kevin finally managed to say. The king returned to his throne. This session is concluded. We have a new heir to the empire. Let the word spread to all worlds. As the court dispersed, Kevin and Valcor walked together through the palace halls. Other humans stared at Kevin, hope dawning in their eyes. Word was already spreading about what had happened. You did it, Valcor said. You helped me win. And you won freedom for your people. We did it together. I could not have succeeded without you believing in yourself. They reached Valcor's quarters, the same rooms where Kevin had first met the prince months ago. So much had changed since then. What will you do now? Valcor asked. Kevin thought about it. I am going to help you be the best crown prince this empire has ever seen. And then, when you become king one day, we are going to change everything. Make it better. Make it fair. For dragons and humans both. That is a big goal. We just won an impossible trial. I think we can handle it. That night, Kevin wrote a message to be broadcast to Earth and all the human colonies across the empire. He wanted every human to know what had happened. My name is Kevin Martinez, the message began. 50 years ago, we were conquered. We were told we were weak, that we had no value except as servants. Today, that changed. Today, a dragon king admitted he was wrong about us. Today, the first human was granted rank in the dragon court. Today, humans earned the right to prove themselves. He paused, thinking about his brother, about everyone who had died in the war, about everyone still suffering under dragon rule. We are not forgotten. We are not finished. One human changed a king's mind. One friendship changed an empire. Tomorrow, we start changing the galaxy. We do not do it with weapons or war. We do it by proving every day that we have value, that we have strength in our own way, that we deserve respect. Kevin ended the message and sent it out across the communication networks. Within hours, it would reach millions of humans. Within days, it would reach them all. He stood at his window, looking out at the dragon capital city. Somewhere up there, Veilcor was probably reading through archive documents, preparing for his new responsibilities. Somewhere, King Thoraxis was reconsidering 300 years of certainty. Somewhere, Princess Sereth was probably plotting revenge. Somewhere, humans were hearing Kevin's message and feeling hope for the first time in decades. Kevin smiled. The trial was over. But the real work was just beginning. And he was ready for it, because sometimes, the greatest victories do not come from being the strongest. They come from being smart enough, brave enough, and stubborn enough to prove that strength has many forms, and that a servant and a prince, working together, could change an empire.